was the year 1993.
So, 1993, the movies, the cartoons, and the TV shows, which made for a truly unforgettable year of entertainment. But what is that question, you ask? Where are the games? Where are the video games? Well, right here actually. The early to mid-90s was dominated by the 16-bit console war by Sega and Nintendo, and 1993 saw some very notable releases. First out of the gate is NBA Jam on the Super Nintendo, a 2-on-2 versus game that sees you play against a computer or a friend. It featured the main rosters of the 92-93 NBA season, which at this point in time was one of the first sports games to use real players as it had the licensing rights. There was a notable lack of big names here, with both Michael Jordan and Shaquille O'Neal absent. Jordan owned the rights to his own name and Midway did not secure a license to use it. And Shaq was only featured in the arcade port and never to be seen on the console versions. The gameplay was fast-paced and outlandish, with all the incredible dribbles and spectacular dunks. The nets burning once the ball turned into fire. Probably the best known feature of the game is the commentary and all those famous catchphrases.
He's on fire! The rebound! Terrible shot! Oh, yes! The steal! Oh!
I did play this game quite a bit as a young lad, but mostly with friends, as it was the best way to experience the game. NBA Jam did go on to spawn several follow-ups down the years, but the 93 version would be the landmark that started the whole franchise. NBA Jam was developed by Midway, the creators of Mortal Kombat, which is the perfect segue to the next item on this list.
You weak, pathetic fool. All too easy.
Following a very successful first outing, Mortal Kombat 2 made its way onto arcades of June 1993. It proved to be a resounding success as the game returned with better graphics, a bigger roster, improved gameplay. Everything that was great about the first Mortal Kombat was expanded upon here and was universally popular with fans in the gaming media. The violence, which was infamously condemned by the non-gaming public, continued on in this game, and the fatalities were more brutal than ever before. Following its success in the arcades, it would later be ported over to the home consoles the following year, with many fans and critics citing the SNES version as the best port, especially as it now allowed the use of blood, which was not used in the first Mortal Kombat, due to Nintendo wanting to adopt a more kid-friendly approach. That kid-friendly approach failed completely, as sales were low when compared to the Genesis version, which allowed for more blood in the first Mortal Kombat. For me, this was when I was most excited about the Mortal Kombat series and played the game many times as a kid. Subsequent versions of the game, including the modern day iterations, didn't quite get me as hyped up when it comes to fighting games. Street Fighter and the Marvel vs series are still my go-tos when it comes to one-on-one fighting beat-em-ups. To date, Mortal Kombat 2 has grossed over $400 million in sales for the home consoles and over $600 million for the arcade cabinets, so that's over $1 billion in total when you combine everything. A bona fide classic and a real alternative to the Street Fighter games.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
For nearly 3 decades, EA Sports and FIFA had been synonymous with football games, and the FIFA EA franchise is currently worth billions. And 1993 was the year that began the ascent of this mega-rich dynasty. There had been other football games prior to this, a la Sensible Soccer, but the arrival of FIFA would forever change the landscape of soccer games on home consoles. There was a total of 76 international teams. However, as this was the early days of FIFA, there wasn't the actual names and likeness of the players and teams. So you had a lot of fictional names for the players, and the actual developers of the game lent their own names to the players. Over time, the licensing deals EA and FIFA made would allow for the actual real names of the players, the teams, and the official club emblems. Here, this game was all about the gameplay. It was faster, slicker with better passing range than previous football games. There were 4 main modes in exhibition, tournament, playoffs and leagues. I wasn't into football at this stage in my life, but I did enjoy playing the video games, and this ultimately led me to enjoying the real thing. By today's standards, the game looks very ancient, but had it not been for the success of this title, who knows if you would have had the FIFA franchise as it is today, or even its main rival, Pro Evolution Soccer. A massive thumbs up to the game that started a very successful and quite frankly lucrative gaming franchise.
EA Sports. It's in the game.
This year saw the release of a video game that created and defined the first-person shooter genre. 1993 saw the arrival of Doom on the PC. The game is so legendary that its position in gaming folklore cannot be overstated. It has influenced so many legendary first-person shooter games, from Halo to Call of Duty. It pioneered the online multi-game player mode. You could shoot all forms of monsters and aliens, as the game was set on military bases on Mars and Hell. There's even a Mecha Hitler character to shoot in the game. The team deathmatch was the most popular point for the success of the game, when up to 4 players could spend hours shooting each other over and over again. The hype for the release of this game in '93 was unlike anything ever seen at that point. As it was a PC game and not a console game, it could only be accessed from the internet, which was still in its infancy. Users were online waiting to download Doom and had to be kicked off the server just so the developers could upload the game. About half an hour after the game had been uploaded, the server hosting the game crashed as around 10,000 users were trying to download the game. This caused the developers to release patches and Doom-specific rules to help cope with the overwhelming demand. This scenario was the earliest indicator of where the industry was headed in terms of online play. Nowadays, modern games has online services like PSN and Xbox Live, specifically made for people to game with each other in various parts of the world and host multiple online tournaments. It's incredible to think how Doom helped inspire not only many first-person shooter clones, but helped with the advent of online gaming. Doom is often referred to as one of the greatest games of all time in many greatest lists, and given its massive impact in the world of video games, it's not hard to see why.
It's me, Mario!
The character who single-handedly saved the video game industry back in the mid-80s made his presence felt once again in this latest outing, Super Mario All-Stars. Now, this was basically a compilation of Mario's earliest hits, Super Mario Bros. 1 to 3, and the previously unreleased Lost Levels, which was a Japanese exclusive on the Super Famicom back in 1986. All games were remade in this 16-bit graphic style. Super Mario Bros. 2 was a different game compared to Mario's 1 and 3. Mario 2 saw you have a choice of 4 characters: the Mario Brothers, Toad, and the Princess. The objective was to defeat the villain King Wart. In this game, it wasn't the traditional stomping on the characters' heads, but being able to pick up enemies and throw them. As this was the first time I played Mario 2, it just felt so bizarre playing a Mario game in this particular fashion as opposed to what I was already used to. The Lost Levels, I confess, I was never really into, as I just played a handful of times and played with no real conviction. Mario 1 and 3 are the ones I spent the most time with, as I enjoyed playing them on the original Nintendo. Nothing groundbreaking, but a very welcome addition to the Mario Kingdom, and the type of platform games that I enjoy playing. The list of video games that were released in 1993 is so big that I couldn't possibly cover everything, but here's some honorable mentions of video games that were released this year.
And they're underway.
And that brings a final end on all things entertainment for 1993. This was such a massive list to get through that it wasn't possible to cover anything, just some of my personal highlights and some of the biggest headliners. Are there any 1993 highlights that you remember? If so, please, the comment section is open for business. Legendary films, groundbreaking video games, brilliant cartoons, and iconic sitcoms. A complete package to fully put a stamp on the fact that
it was the year 1993.